Donald Trump announced in June that around a third of American soldiers would be withdrawn from Germany. The US Congress wants to block these plans for the time being. The US Congress wants to block the current US President Donald Trump's planned withdrawal of American soldiers from Germany for the time being. This emerges from the draft law package for the US defense budget, which Democrats and Republicans agreed in both houses in Congress. The draft states that the US Secretary of Defense must state in a report to Congress whether such a withdrawal is in the national interest of the US. At the earliest, 120 days later, the number of troops stationed in the Federal Republic should fall below the limit of 34,500 US soldiers. In the report, the Department of Defense had to explain, among other things, whether the withdrawal was in the national security interest of the US and what effects it would have for the security of the US allies and partners in Europe. The bill requires a number of additional analyses in a total of 12 sub-items, including the effects on NATO, the operational capability of the US Armed Forces, and the costs of troop withdrawal. Members of the House of Representatives, in which the Democrats have a majority, and the Republican-dominated Senate agreed last week on the 4,500-page defense budget for the coming year. After being passed by the two houses of Congress in Congress, Trump must sign the law for it to come into effect. Trump could veto the text, which in turn would have to be overruled by a two-thirds majority in both chambers of Congress. With regard to the planned withdrawal from Germany, the draft says on page 1428 that the Congress continues to assess Germany as a strong NATO partner. The presence of the approximately 34,500 members of the US Armed Forces stationed in Germany serves as an important deterrent for military aggression and expansionist efforts by Russia in Europe. The US troops in Germany are also of central importance in supporting US operations in the Middle East, Africa, and Afghanistan. Trump had announced the withdrawal of some of the US soldiers in Germany in mid-June and justified the step with what he saw as insufficient defense spending in Germany. A total of around 12,000 soldiers were to be withdrawn. That means around a third of the total number of soldiers stationed in the Federal Republic. A few weeks after Trump's announcement, the now dismissed US Secretary of Defense Mark Esper made it clear that the plans should be implemented as soon as possible. So far, nothing has happened in this regard. Locations in Baden-Württemberg, Bavaria and Rhineland-Palatinate would be particularly affected. Since Trump has to leave the White House after his election defeat to the Democrat Joe Biden on January 20th, the planned troop withdrawal could no longer be carried out according to the law during his term in office. With the bill, the parliamentarians are also trying to complicate the troop reductions announced by Trump in Afghanistan. The text says that before the troops can be reduced to below 4,000 soldiers, the Ministry of Defense must submit a comprehensive report detailing the effects of such a move. Before that, no budget approved by Congress should be used for such a troop withdrawal. The US Department of Defense announced in mid-November that the number of US soldiers in Afghanistan should be reduced to 2,500 by January 15th. This corresponds to a withdrawal of around 2,000 soldiers and aroused international concerns about the resurgence of the Taliban and other radical Islamic groups in the civil war country. If you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel and also to my other channels. I'll see you in my next video. Viel Spaß!